this video, we are going to understand how can we write the domain, or we can say in short that how can we understand about the key features of the reciprocal function. And when we talk about the key feature, it means we are going to understand about the domain, asymptote, range, or finding the x or the y intercepts of a reciprocal function. Understand all the key features from the parent function. Now, before understanding the parent function, I would like you to understand one more equation which is written in the form of a over x minus h plus k. Now, whenever any equation comes in the form of rational function, the first thing is compare this equation, yani your question, by this standard equation. Now, one by one, we will see that what is meant by A, what is meant by H, and what is meant by K. So first of all, the first thing is that we have to write the excluded value in order to write our domain. So for that reason, always focus on the denominator, and whatever the denominator, just write it and make it not equals to 0. And solve for x, and in this case you have the value x not equals to 0. What does it mean? It means that if you write this 0 in the equation like 1 over 0, it makes the function undefined. So for that reason you have to write the domain all real numbers except 0. Means except 0, all the values will give you the answer. But the task doesn't come. This you have written in the form, in verbal form. Now normally we ask you to find the domain, write the domain in the form of interval notation. So for that purpose, just try to make a number line, an imaginary number line. And when you practice, no need to make a number line, you will be able to write the interval notation yourself. But let me explain you with the help of the number line that how do we write the domain. Now on one side, on the left hand side, the value of the x is negative infinity. It means it's going down and down and down, or lesser and lesser and lesser from the left hand side. And the x values at the right hand side will be positive infinity. It means as you go towards the right, the x values increases without bound. Now the number that you get as the excluded value, write it in the middle. Now, what is meant by excluded? So, I'm writing on one right hand side that excluded means that the number that is not included. So, whenever you make a number line, always use a hollow point which shows that the value is excluded. Now, if you have a shaded point, it means that the value is included. Similarly, if you have an excluded point, you will use the brackets, the small brackets. And for the included values, you always make the bigger bracket. And for infinity or negative infinity, always you make the small bracket. So this is the important thing which you should know before writing the domain. So come back to our main question. So here 0 is excluded. So make a hollow point above the 0 to show that this point is excluded, and all real numbers. So extend your line from the towards the left side and the right hand side. Now how to write the domain? How to write the domain? So the first interval shows from negative infinity till 0. So you just write negative infinity, comma 0. As I said, on negative infinity, always the small bracket, and 0 is also excluded. So make a small bracket. Then write down the union, or. Now after that, you have another interval from 0 till infinity. So write 0, comma infinity. Now infinity excluded, always we make the small bracket, 0 excluded, we make the small bracket. So this is now your domain. So once you practice more and more and more questions, you will become the champion of writing the domains. Now let's come to the other side. That excluded value in your case right now, let's suppose this is not a, this is one or any number, or any or any constant number on the top, not a a. It's not a it could be any number other than a rational equation in your case. So what you have to do, just this excluded value in your case, in this case, your excluded value will also be known as vertical asymptote. It means whatever you will get here, solve for x. So x minus h equals to 0. Bring the h over here. So x equals to h. So this h is your vertical asymptote. So h is what? That excluded value. So in your case, the vertical asymptote is 0. So when you represent the vertical asymptote, you have to write x equals to 0. This is your vertical asymptote. Now, what does it mean? Whenever you will make the 0, it means at 0, the equation becomes undefined. But in place of x, rather than putting the 0, if you write a very small number, let's suppose 0.000001, you will get an answer. Which means, or you will write negative 0.0001, you will get an answer. It means the function from the vertical side coming closer and closer and closer to the 0, but it will never ever touch the 0, or it will never hit the 0 point. Now, in order to determine the horizontal asymptote, only focus the k value. So this k value actually represents your horizontal asymptote. Now come to your side and check what is your horizontal asymptote. So horizontal asymptote in your case, after 1 over x, there is nothing written. So what imaginary number you can say that maybe plus 0 is written, because 1 over x plus 0 gives you 1 over x. So it means in your case, the k value is 0. So what is your horizontal asymptote? Remember that horizontal asymptote can be represented by y. So you can write here y equals to. So that is your horizontal asymptote. Now, once it is done, you have to write by looking at the horizontal asymptote your range. Means range are the y values. That's why you wrote y equals to 0. And again the y, that it will not touch the 0 point. That is horizontal asymptote horizontally will not touch the 0 point at y. So in the range, you will again write same all real numbers except 0. And now you know how to write negative infinity till 0 and then union 0 till infinity. So this is your range. Now we have two more key features that are X-intercept and Y-intercept. So let's see that how can we determine X-intercept and Y-intercept. So in order to find the X-intercept, okay, so X-intercept, what is meant by X-intercept? So just recall the X-intercept means Y equals to 0. It means wherever you have the Y, you just in place of Y write it down like as 0. But what is Y? You all know that f of x means Y. So this f of x means Y value. So in place of y, just write here y, that is 0, equals to 1 over x. Now solve for x. So if we bring the x over here, okay, so anything multiplied by 0 gives you 0. Means I will say x times 0 equals to 1. So x times 0 gives you 0. So that's where I got the 0. So 0 equals to 1. So is 0 equals to 1? No, 0 is not equals to 1. So it means that you don't have x-intercept. You will say no x-intercept. And just now we understood that if there is a horizontal asymptote, it means there is no line touching that point. If the line is not touching at 0, it means no x. Now, once x-intercept is done, let's determine y-intercept. And what is y-intercept? So recall that whenever we are asked to find the y-intercept, it means x equals to 0. So what is the best way to find the y value? Just put the x equals to 0 in the equation number A. It means in your question. So you will write in place of f of x, just write the y. It is the best way, equals to 1 over 0. So 1 over 0 also a math error, or bring the 0 over here. So 0 times y gives you 0, which is not equals to 1. So you don't have a y value. You will say no y-intercept. That is all. So in this question, you don't have any x-intercept or y-intercept. Let's try to solve all these kind of questions in order to understand, or in order to have a look on these, or be the master of this concept. Now, before that one, I will tell you how to graph it. Before going further, let's see how to graph it. So the first thing is you have a vertical asymptote. If you go previously, so vertical asymptote, it was x equals to 0. We had the horizontal asymptote, that was y equals to 0. X equals to 0, so x equals to 0, it means you have a vertical line, show it at 0, the dotted line. You have horizontal asymptote, y equals to 0, which means you have a horizontal asymptote, so make a horizontal line at 0 horizontally. Now, after that, you have no x-intercept and you have no y-intercept. So if just try to make a table one time. So just write x values which are lesser than 0. So for example, -1, -1, -2, and -3, right? And put it in the equation one by one. So 1 over -1 gives you -1. 1 over -2 gives you -0.5. 1 over -3 gives you -0.333. Just draw them, that -1 and -1 here, -2 and -0.5 over here, and -3 and -0.333 is over here. And you go further and further. Do not touch the x value. And from after the -1, you can take a point at -0.5. But if you don't want to see, just extend your graph towards downward position, but do not touch the y-axis. Now take the reflection on the both sides, because it is in the rational function you always get a symmetry, and the reflection of this third quadrant will go in the first quadrant. So I'm not going to take and test all these things, just I will draw an imaginary line, thinking that it is my reflection. So this is the best way to understand how to graph it. And once you will graph 2 or 3 questions, you will be able to understand that how can we sketch the graphs even without the table. So let's practice few more questions. Here we have a question, 1 over x minus 2. So let's first of all understand 1 over x minus h plus k. This is our basic equation through which we have to compare our question. So first of all, writing the domain. In order to write the domain, we focus in the denominator, and the denominator says that x minus 2 not equals to 0. Now solve for x, bring the 2 on the other side, you will get x not equals to 2. So what is the domain? All real numbers except 2. And we know that if we make a number line, here we have a negative infinity, on the other side we have a positive infinity, and in between we have the number 2. Now the first interval from negative infinity till 2, write it in the bracket. Both are excluded, so that's why you will write from negative infinity till 2. Then union from 2 till infinity, that is your another interval. Once it is done, what you have to do, you can easily write what is your vertical asymptote. So your vertical asymptote is the excluded value of x. So what is the excluded value? You can say that is, so you will say vertical asymptote is x equals to 2. Now come to the second side and say where is your horizontal asymptote. And through our previous knowledge, we said that this k value is your horizontal asymptote. So you will write horizontal asymptote as y equals to, now here in place of k, there is no value, so you will write y equals to 0. So once horizontal asymptote is done, what we have to do? We have to determine our range. So in the range, again, same thing, all real numbers except this horizontal asymptote. So we will say from negative infinity till 0 and from 0 till infinity is our range. Now after finding these things, we will try to find the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept means that x equals to 0. So just in place of f of x, write down y equals to 1 over, replace 0 by x, so 0 minus 2, you will get negative half, which means negative 0.5. So y-intercept, we write it in the form of coordinates as x and y. So x is 0 and y is negative 0.5. Now after finding this, the last part, that means write down the x-intercept. And what is meant by x-intercept? Y equals to 0. So in place of f of x, write down 0 equals to 1 over x minus 2. Bring the x minus 2 on the other side. So what you will get? That 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0, not equals to 1, this one, but they are not equals, so just make it 0, not equals to 1. What does it mean? It means you don't have any x-intercept. It means no x-intercept. Now try to draw the equation. Try to draw the graph. So there is a horizontal asymptote and there is a vertical asymptote. So we see that the horizontal asymptote at 0, and you can see that if the horizontal asymptote is 0, so of course there will not be x-intercept, because x-intercept means the line that touches the x-axis. So if you have the horizontal asymptote, there will not be any line that is touching the x-axis. And there is a y-intercept which you got at 2. So 1 and 2. So on the 2, just make a vertical line which represents that this is the vertical asymptote. Now after that, take any point from the left hand side. So for example, you make a table if you want. If you have a graphic calculator, you use your graphic calculator, and if you know how can we make this directly, you can directly make it, but it is better to take 1 or 2 points to understand or to avoid any kind of confusion. So on the left hand side, you have 1 and you have 0 also. So put 1 in the question. So you will get 1 over 1 minus 2. That will gives you negative 1. Now put 0 in the question. You will get 1 over 0 negative 2. That means negative 0.5. So just draw it. On the 1 you have negative 1 over here. And on the 0 you have negative 0.5, so somewhere here. Just join them, extend your graph by making a smooth curve. Do not touch the x-axis, just come closer, but do not touch the x-axis and do not touch that dotted line. Now take the reflection in the first quadrant of the same graph and always you will get a graph like that. So this is the way we make our rational functions graph. Hope you understood this concept. In the next video, we will explain you more questions of the same kind and of harder level. So see you in the next video. Bye.